Frank, thanks for making the time.
It's a pleasure.
Now, this is a very important fight. Give me your perspective on it.
This is the biggest fight of the 21st century. The heavyweight division is the blue ribbon division of boxing. It's the first time ever there's been 4 belts on the line. The last time there was a unification fight was back in 1999, Lennox Lewis at Holyfield. There were 3 belts. So now it's the 4 belts on the line. Both of these fighters are undefeated. They're fighting their prime. This is not an old guy fighting the youngster, handing the baton over. This is the best fighting the best. And I think we're going to be in for something extra special.
I should point out for those who aren't sort of familiar with boxing, the different belts you're talking about, basically the different associations.
Organisations. So you've got the WBC, the WBO, the WBA and the IBF. They're the recognised best governing bodies.
What sort of elevated anticipation was created by the fact that Tyson Fury got the cut over his eye back earlier in the year?
Well, we tried to make the fight a couple of times prior to that, and we got quite close to it, but it didn't happen. And then through the offices of His Excellency and his vision and the Riyadh season here in Saudi, we got it over the line. And everybody's really up for it. February was going to be the big day, and unfortunately, a couple of weeks before the fight, Tyson sustained a really bad cut whilst he was sparring, so it got postponed. But I've got to be honest, sometimes out of bad comes good, and it's made it actually a bigger, more anticipated fight now. And Tyson looks in extremely great condition. He's in a great mental place at the moment. Physically, he looks brilliant, as Usyk does, by the way. So I think we're going to get some serious fireworks on the night.
I was going to say, because of course, part of the thing with boxing now is all the psychology around it. How much does the whole show and the kind of aggression?
Well, I don't like any of that. But there are emotions, there's families involved, and friends are involved, and trainers are involved. So it all bubbles up sometimes. It just takes a little spark and something silly happens.
Tyson, of course, quite a character. He's got a huge fan base here, hasn't he?
He has. He's built a big fan base up, and he's obviously very popular in the United States. Him and the fight against Wilder broke box office records in Vegas casino when they fought each other. At Wembley, when we did the fight against him and Dillian White, that broke all box office records for any event. 94,000 people, fastest selling event ever. He's had 3 books in the top #1 position in the UK. The biggest, I think it's the highest viewing figures for a Netflix series in the UK with his reality show. So he's a very popular guy.
I was going to ask you, how do you regard Saudi Arabia as a venue for these massive matches now? Because it wouldn't have been on your radar a few years ago, I guess.
Well, for me, it wouldn't have been a year ago, to be quite honest. And as I say, because of the vision of His Excellency, who's a massive boxing fan and very knowledgeable, and the fact that Riyadh season is such an important cultural event now, not just sport, but all sorts of entertainment, and boxing plays a significant part of it now, which I'm delighted that is the case. It's now the centre of world boxing. That's a fact of life. It's taken over from Vegas. It's the centre of world boxing.
And I guess every sport needs a champion, especially to bring it to a place like Saudi Arabia. And of course, His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, whom you're referring to, he's, I guess, really been very much the champion here and helped.
Oh, without a doubt. Without him, it wouldn't have been happening. Without His Excellency and under his leadership and his team at Sella, Riyadh season and the GA, none of this would be happening. And they've revolutionised boxing. We're getting the big event, but you're getting undercards also on these, the fights on the undercard that are main events in their own right. So you're getting these super cards that are just, you're a boxing fan or a sports fan, you're in boxing heaven. These are the best shows that, in my time in boxing, that are being put together from top to bottom, from the top of the bill to the bottom of the bill. You've got superb matchmaking and great fights.
Now, of course, as we talk, we're waiting for the Fury Usyk fight to happen, the big Ring of Fire, as it's being branded here. In terms of Anthony Joshua, who had quite a stunning defeat against Francis Ngannou recently, is this now the lineup to get Fury against Ngannou?
Well, he's come back
against Joshua.
AJ's come back with 2 good wins. He's had 2 wins against Tyson's former opponents, and he's got himself into a good position. But where we are with this is that we've got the fight on the 18th of May, next Saturday. The loser of the fight has the right to call for a rematch, and he's getting paid substantial money for the rematch. That was part of the deal. So to get straight to a Joshua fight, and I believe Tyson will win, get Tyson in with Joshua, we'll have to get the loser to step aside, which I don't think will happen. So it's to get the rematch out of the way. And if Tyson comes through the 2 fights, then AJ, providing he keeps winning, back here in February for another absolute top quality event.
Now, you're a veteran. You're one of the biggest names in boxing. Of course, your rival for many years was Barry Hearn, who now, of course, has his son Eddie.
Yeah.
How much rivalry is there at that level?
Well, it's been for Barry and I have been rivals before we even got into boxing, going back to many years ago when we was in a similar businesses together. But Eddie and I are best mates now. You know, again, for his excellency and his vision to do, you know, the best, his company, Matchroom, and Eddie's company, their best 5 of their best fighters against 5 of our best Queensberry fighters. That's on June the 1st here, back in Riyadh. Cracking event. I mean, really good quality fights. And the bragging rights, you know, Queensberry, or is it going to be Matchroom? I know it's going to be Queensberry.
Well, it's getting to be quite almost the half century for you as a promoter. I think first fight in 1980, or the first licensed fight. How much have things changed since then?
It's changed in a lot. I mean, it's changed that we're in Riyadh. But then in my time before boxing, all the big fights in Britain, you know, a fighter would win the world title and he'd invariably go off to America, probably New York, defend the title, maybe get beat, and that would be it. Then Vegas came about because of the casinos and the money that they brought to bring the events to it. And here we are into the new century, 2024, Riyadh, or 2023, now 2024, Riyadh season. That's the new home of boxing. And who would have thought that would happen? But the world shrinks. And there's all different ways to consume it, you know, with social media, and, you know, in the newspaper, you'd listen to it on the radio, then you'd watch it in cinemas, now you watch it at home. All different ways you can watch it streaming. But you know what? What hasn't changed is what you're watching. The best fighting the best, because that's what people are buying into. And as far as the heavyweight's concerned, if you think back, certainly in my lifetime, the most famous sports person on the planet, and all those different sports that you have that are popular in different areas, but the most famous sportsman on the planet was the heavyweight champion of the world, Jack Dempsey. You could go through Marciano, Joe Louis, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, Ali, all the way through. Lennox Lewis was always the most famous sportsman on the planet, and that is what's going to happen on Saturday. Somebody's going to become the most famous sportsman on the planet.
So let me wrap up with your thoughts on Tyson Fury in terms of, as a promoter, what's the easiest thing about promoting him?
That he's such a promotable fighter. I've got to tell you something. You know, my dream fight would have been him and Muhammad Ali. Would have been a great fight, but you know, more for the press conferences, because they're the 2 most colourful heavyweights ever. You know, great, you know, just great one-liners, great characters. Press would love it. Could you imagine those? You could sell tickets for the press conferences.
So what's the hardest thing about managing him?
Nothing really. I mean, I've got to be honest, he's a delight to work with because he wants to fight. He's a fighting man. He comes from a fighting background and he's happiest when he's fighting. What's going to be a terrible thing for him is, like everybody, that career will come to an end one day.
Frank, thank you so much for your time.
It's a great pleasure.
Thank you, sir. No doubt the tensions will continue to rise before the big day on the 18th of May. For now, from me and the team here in Riyadh, also Dubai and London, I'm Riz Khan. We'll see you next time.